2. Let's see how this goes. We'll wait for some joiners so that we can test out the sound to make sure we're good to go. A little bit of a issue with our mic. I'm going to also go over and grab the link that we need for the stream so that we can go ahead and share that out. And I will let these folks know that we are live again. There we go. All right. Hopefully that fixed the issue. We sounded a little robotic there for a moment, so just needed to straighten that out. All right, let's go over here and check this out. We'll go ahead and get rid of our last link. We may have to edit out some of this. Oh, good, we're better. Okay, perfect. Luckily that didn't take long and we can still go over some things tonight. All right, perfect. Appreciate it. And thank you for letting me know that that was not right, because I forgot to do a sound test after I moved over all of the new stuff. So perfect. Now everybody can hear my really bad sounding voice a whole lot clearer. Okay, let's get rid of our last live so that we don't confuse anybody with our robotic live. And I appreciate everybody being patient. We want to make sure we share this out for our friends on Facebook. We're making a lot of friends over on Facebook. I must say that I'm really excited about that. It really makes me happy. We're getting more subscribers. We got on our last video, we got way more views than our normal. So we appreciate it. We appreciate all the love and all the people that have been engaging with us over on Facebook. We aim to put out stories that we think matter, that people should know about, that people should faces that maybe people need to kind of be aware of. Just like when we reported on recently, we reported on Corey Rollins. You know, that's a guy that's eventually going to get out in the South Georgia area. We don't know if he'll stay there, but likely because of parole issues, he'll probably have to. He's a face that people need to know about. He was doing horrendous things with children. And people need to know that because he's young and he's going to get out. And when it comes to early release and all kinds of things that can happen, it may be a lot sooner than people realize. Today, a man who was facing over 25 years in prison, a former meteorologist, it was, being reported earlier that he got out in 4 years. They ended up giving him a 4-year minimum somehow, and he met that minimum and got out. And a lot of them do. They're overcrowded. There are issues. And there are a lot of low staffing issues. There's a crisis going on in our prison systems. Georgia is no stranger to that. They're trying to crack down on the drugs and a lot of the contraband that is coming in and out of the Georgia prisons as well. But on top of that, staffing issues in prisons are really scary right now. It's a big issue. So I'm just kind of rambling on. We'll get to our topic. Does the higher pitch on the vocals, does it sound distorted at all or anything? Do we need to bring it down at all? If so, I can do that. I'm going to have to fine tune the sound now that we switched everything around. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So we've got like our sound check crew back here. I feel really important when that happens. I always like sound check time. So we'll try not to hit our microphone. That's what we're going to do. We're going to try not to do that, but we're going to address some things that happened over on the channel after our last video. Podcast, audio transmission. whatever you want to call it. So on our last one, we had a lot of people tuning in more than normal, and also tuning into the Facebook post because I noticed, not going to throw anybody else under the bus. I noticed that over on a City of Douglas, Georgia Facebook page, they had the information about the arrest of Rodger Goddard, the code enforcement officer over in the city of Douglas. Also, some people call that a marshal, some people not a marshal in the way that you might think. We can break that down if we need to. Georgia has some interesting um, Georgia and South Carolina both have some interesting titles for their government officials. So we could break that down because a lot of it just goes back to, what they used in like 1600. So it's just a matter of understanding history and how it did not collide very well with modern times. So, anyways, as we've already covered, for anybody who isn't aware and is tuning in now, Rodger Goddard was arrested for the allegations in the report that we went over in the last video. People are welcome to go and check that video out. It goes over his charges and the actual court document of the warrant, the charging affidavit, basically. He is alleged to have put a GPS tracking device on a civilian's vehicle without search warrant. That is illegal to do for a law enforcement officer of any variety. Just dip your hand down in the Skittle bag and whatever title they have, whether it be from 1500 or 2024, it's illegal. You can't do that as a law enforcement officer, as a government official. You can't be doing that, going around and tracking citizens without approval from the court. Like I said in the last one, the court is daddy, and you can't get away with it. It's just not legal. So there are situations. It appears there's language in the document that makes it sound like maybe Goddard believed he was operating in a private investigator type capacity. Well, that also can very much be a major issue if you are also a law enforcement officer currently. We can get into that as well. Those things are a lot to break down for everyone. So if people want to know, leave a comment. We'll go over it. Aside from that, we got some commentary back and forth on Facebook. A lot of love for the reporting, but then we got a few comments over on YouTube, and those are the ones we want to go over. So Rodger Goddard was arrested and charged so far. His court proceedings are not finalized. They're still going through the process. It's very recent that this happened. The incident happened back in February. There is a local individual who allegedly hired Goddard to put a tracking device on the citizen's vehicle. Well, the person that hired him to do this is a convicted felon who is accused of stealing a lot of money from the government for pandemic relief funds. But it's not really just your normal. A lot of people got in trouble for this because they didn't pay it back, or they might have lied a little bit on their application, but it appears that the individual who hired Goddard allegedly went a lot further and kind of made up a lot of information in order to get way more than what he would have been entitled to just by his regular business. There's a couple businesses mentioned in the affidavit. Like I said, if you go back to the last video about it, you can get the goods. Okay, so let's move forward from there onto the comments. I am pretty sure that the person making these comments really thought this was a gotcha moment, and I hope for them it was, because I enjoy when people get a little bit of comic relief in their life, especially when they're facing very difficult things. And I think the two individuals we're discussing may be facing some difficult things. So we started to get comments after our video about Rodger Goddard's arrest from somebody who has a YouTube account by the name of Travis Stewart. Now, Travis began commenting saying that Goddard is innocent. And there's been a lot of that on Facebook without people seeing that court process even play out to see what's the evidence, what's the defense. Let's look at everything, right? Without seeing any of that, people immediately began propping up his character. And that's fine if you think he's a good man. My point is, good or bad, we all have the ability to let the pendulum swing. A good person can do bad things, a bad person can do good things. It happens all the time. I mean, just look at drug offenses. Most of the time, drug offenses are doing drugs does not inherently make you a bad person. Sometimes it happens because of what people are going through, or they seek relief in that way, and it's just not always a good idea. Hold on one moment. Let me go ahead and put this sound blocker on. Okay. Sorry about that. Started to get a little loud in the background, and I was like, better put that on. Okay. So the comments started out with, he's innocent, which I was already used to that language, so no big deal. Really, all the comments still really not a big deal. These things happen on cases all the time. People begin talking about the case or defending whoever they think is innocent in the matter. These things happen. It just is what it is. So the comments then started to get a little bit more consistent from this person who has a YouTube account named Travis Stewart. And then out of nowhere, he just accepts responsibility for the entire thing. So let's stop the train for just a second. The problem is the person commenting thinks that that is that is a good thing, that they're the one that really did it, because that means Rodger Goddard is innocent, right? And he mentions in these comments that he's unsure why Goddard was even charged. Um, let's just be clear. This YouTube account claiming responsibility, putting himself in the middle of the crime, saying that he was there and he's the one who did it, saying that he is not yet named by law enforcement, but I mean, he's named himself, so I guess, why not talk about it? This person is placing themselves in a difficult situation. So at this point, it'd probably be a good idea to just throw some actual details out there about what happened. They're not doing that though. They're just trying to throw out little tidbits of kind of like a gotcha, like you don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. We don't know what we're talking about because we wait for the evidence to unfold. However, this person seems to be irritated that we're reporting on this situation in the middle of the evidence unfolding. They mentioned in their comments, why, like, why are you reporting on this? Why not wait until it goes through the court system? These allegations are why we don't wait, because courts need to be open and the public needs to make sure that we demand fairness. And if we don't see fairness, then we need to demand it. Same thing for your friend Roger. If he isn't being treated fairly and these charges are not on the up and up, you better let somebody know. It needs to be talked about. Keeping things quiet isn't the way that we resolve anything. However, open and fair court systems do a lot of things, and I mean a lot of things. So being able to report on that process as it goes forward with that public information that we're all entitled to about any type of court proceedings, unless, of course, there are things that make perfect sense, as in when a minor child is involved, when abuse is involved of different varieties. We're not going to get into a bunch of graphic stuff tonight, but There are reasons for some hearings to be sealed or redacted heavily. There's always a reason for that. I'm not being absolutely insane in my thinking. However, for the most part, courts are supposed to be open, they're supposed to be fair, they're supposed to be judged by the public, hence the public jury of your peers. There's a reason why things are reported on. It's not just to salaciously throw everything around. If you don't want things salaciously thrown around, keep things on the up and up. With that being said, that's not the point. The point is being able to report on these things, report on how they're unfolding, report on whether or not there is an abuse of authority from a judge, from a prosecutor, from a defense attorney, from a person charged. The fact that there is a code enforcement officer charged in this crime and people are not eyeballing the evidence as it comes out, waiting in anticipation, I just don't understand that, because this is the very reason why we have to have open trials, open court proceedings, open documentation. The public has to be able to see these things, because otherwise authority is abused. Now, the GBI is alleging that authority was abused in this case. I think this is a very important case. I would say based on the comments we've seen on Facebook, there's a lot of people in the city of Douglas that think this is a very important case. And I agree with them. Anytime you have someone who is a government official, a law enforcement officer who is charged with a crime like this, you bet it's important. It's important to know what your elected officials and what your hired government officials are doing. Law enforcement officers included. It's highly, highly important. Now, if you would like to have a conversation about this, if you feel that the charging document has things wrong, this person is saying he put the device on, that Rodger Goddard didn't. I'll explain in a moment why that's still a problem. However, he's saying that if the government has things wrong, we're not getting the full picture, it would probably be best to not be vague, because the only time you really see a person defend somebody in this kind of way is if they're romantically involved. And I wouldn't want you to give that vibe if that's not what the case is. So I would recommend throwing out some details if you want to defend yourself and defend Rodger. Let people know what happened then. Otherwise, let the court process play out. I, however, am not going to engage in commentary that's going absolutely nowhere and doesn't make logical sense. Here's why it doesn't make sense. This person claims that they put the tracker on, not Goddard. Why does that matter? Because Goddard is a law enforcement officer who is not allowed to do such a thing unless he had a warrant, right? These allegations say that Goddard was hired by a man to put this device on a person's vehicle. And for those who were not tuning into our last live about this, part of the problem here is that the person who hired Goddard was asking some really weird stuff, allegedly. The allegation is that the person asked Goddard to put on the tracking device on this third party's vehicle and then report back to them. They wanted Goddard to tell them anytime this person was not in public view or coming and going from certain places. The not in public view thing is probably the most terrifying, I believe, of the entire affidavit. So those are some really serious claims. That should be cleared up if there's an answer for that. Another thing is, according to the charging affidavit, Goddard is the one who was communicating with this person the whereabouts of this other third party who's just a citizen. Now, this person was saying they're no longer a teacher. We mentioned, the GBI article says that they're a teacher, and we were reading that article, and they mention I'm not sure why their profession matters exactly. I think just the details of the crime is all we're really interested. The only reason the education, employment was even mentioned was because it is part of the affidavit. It was done on school property. So whatever this person's role is, and whatever their capacity is in that building, they're going there for work purposes. And while they were there, their vehicle was manipulated in order to track their movements. And according to this affidavit, it was done to track their movements at very suspicious times. Now, aside from all of that, it doesn't really matter at that point who put it on, right? Because the person who's communicating the whereabouts, allegedly, according to the charging affidavit, was Goddard. So maybe he didn't put it on, but he was the one that is alleged to have communicated these details between himself and the person who hired him to put this tracking device on a third-party vehicle. So, we can try to jump all over semantics and different things. However, we're not missing the details over here. And that's why we go over the actual documents, the actual affidavits and information. We're not missing out on any details here. So we have all of this already in front of our eyes. So either the government is lying or doesn't have this story straight, or Lil Travie has made a mistake. So let me just throw this up here real quick. We're just going to theorize. That's all. Just going to theorize. Okay, so Lil Travie, we're going to put our tinfoil hat on and theorize about this. Now, he says that they've got this all wrong, but schools have surveillance footage. And apparently they must have caught on camera Lil Travie, allegedly, and Goddard at the location of the vehicle, right? You would think so if Goddard did not put this on, yet he was implicated because of the communications. But Lil Travie says he's not been charged or named in any documents, and he hasn't. We didn't see anything from Lil Travie until he popped up with his comments. So makes sense, right? Okay. And Lil Travie, if he's not law enforcement, he doesn't have any culpability in the overall crime because he's not communicating the whereabouts. He's not the one that was hired. He's not law enforcement, so he's not held to that standard of needing that warrant. So essentially, now if Little Travie was the one out here communicating with the person that hired them, we're just theorizing here. If he was the one, then perhaps he would have a little bit more culpability. So yeah, Lil Travie, I agree with you. I mean, you say it makes no sense. I say it makes sense. But I'm just saying the information you've offered, I believe you. I think it's true. I think that everything you're saying is correct. Just your summation that it shouldn't be a crime, I don't know about that. However, I do agree with everything you're saying. And if what you're telling us is the truth, then I do believe the situation is quite what we thought it was. Again, this is all just us putting on the tinfoil Little Travie hat and seeing what pops out. And I believe that that's what pops out at this point, is that clearly Lil Travie has no culpability here. So yeah, I think you're good, man. Like, I think you're fine. I would probably leave it at that. I don't think I would try to take it any further. However, we're here to entertain any type of information that wants to come forward in this case. Like I said before, we're open to it. We're not going to have a war in the comments. I'm not going to block you either because, I mean, that would just be silly. You're fun. I like you, Lil Travie. So comment away. I'm good with that. But if you want a real conversation with actual facts and actual details and an actual summary of what you allege has happened in this situation, you know, come forward, let people know. But making very vague claims of innocence and people not understanding and all of this, you're going to have to come with a little bit more than that for people to take it seriously. And this isn't me trying to be sarcastic. The true crime space is cutthroat. Luckily, we're one of the very few talking about this over here, so it's not reached those maximum heights um, of public opinion. And I get it. Nobody wants their name out there like this. Like, nobody does. But it is. It's a thing. This was done. It's an allegation that is by the state, and for now, it's an allegation. Once it plays out in court, we'll see how much weight these details hold. We'll see if a different narrative of the story comes out from the defense being Rodger Goddard in this case. I would imagine, if he's innocent, I would expect this to go to trial. We'll see what happens, though. So we'll keep an eye on it, of course. There's still documents that have not yet been released to the public. We'll be waiting on those, and we'll bring them out and go over them with everybody when they happen, when they're released. But yeah, if I'm just being honest, these things are highly analyzed. When we go over a document, that document's been gone over several times before we talk about it, so we have a full understanding, the details, what makes sense about this, what doesn't make sense. So far, everything that I'm seeing makes sense except for these comments. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. You're welcome to bring other facts. You're welcome to speak out if you think that this is wrong. And if there's certain details that you or Roger cannot speak about right now, that's fine. We respect that. But there is still information that you can bring forward to add some weight to what you're alleging here. If you did it and he's innocent, then who is responsible for the communications? Because it's not just the act of putting it on, it's also the act of what was being communicated to this person, the act of stalking, essentially. Unauthorized tracking and tracing, unauthorized stalking, like that's the level we're on with this. Especially when you're tracking someone and you're trying to find out when they're out of public view. That is just a very suspicious statement. So, uh, above all, if someone has more clarity on that statement, where that came from, how that entered the affidavit, I think that would be very important to this whole thing, and who is really culpable. Anyhow, I hope that everybody involved in this situation is able to see it for what it is at the end of the day, the true facts and evidence, because these are scary situations that often lead to other cases we have of missing persons, homicide, domestic violence. These aren't funny situations or light situations to be throwing around and just claiming that we had the right to be doing this to someone. If you think that, then you're gonna have to prove that. But again, open courts and factual reporting is uh, is a right of the public. It is an important part of our system to make sure as the process goes forward that it is on the up and up for everyone involved, that there's no abuse of authority, and that there's no abuse of community resources. These towns in Georgia are small a lot of times, and they don't have money to be messing with crap like this. Don't be using the resources, and don't be spending your time doing things like this if the allegations are true. I mean, it's just a waste. It really is. And it's sad that this would be done to someone. I don't know this person. I don't have a dog in this fight other than I wanna see fair and proper trials in Georgia, and they're just not happening on all sides, from the state to the defendants. It's just it's really gross what's going on. So, yeah, we do have an interest in fair and open court proceedings in Georgia, all over Georgia, all across the state, not just Douglas and not just South Georgia, not just Lowndes, everywhere. So, anyhow, we're going to get off of that topic because I think we've pretty much covered what we need to say. If you got something to bring forward, then bring it forward. Otherwise, I had stopped responding and the person said, cat got your tongue. No, just an actual life. I mean, we're handling tons of cases over here on a daily basis. We don't have time to go back and forth over it. I understand this channel is small and people don't see all of the work that we do. Um, so I get it. Maybe you just think we're just over here, doing whatever, waiting for you to comment, but that's really just not the case. So, like I said, if you got something to talk about, we're happy to spend our time on it, but we're not going to just go back and forth in comments. Some of those comments really, really might make someone believe that, you know, that you're attending school and maybe that's how you knew she wasn't a teacher. I don't know. Like it gives off the wrong vibe. Very, very high schoolish vibe. There's no reason to be that way about it. I understand. People get upset. Their name gets mentioned. But Lil Travis' name was never mentioned till he brought it up. So that's that. We'll be done theorizing now with the Lil Travis tinfoil hat. And we will go back to our logo here. And I just want to bring up one more thing here. Actually, I don't know if anybody saw that a former Sumter County detention officer turned herself in Thursday. Warrants were issued for improper sexual conduct and violation of oath of office. The agency said that criminal and internal investigations were conducted on Carrie Joyner, is her name, and her employment with the sheriff's office was terminated. So I'm not sure if anybody heard about that. That was from the Americus area. Very sad to see that anytime it happens. There was also a Lowndes County girl who was reported she is deceased after a car chase that sounds like it got pretty bad. It started out in Florida, I believe, and then it crossed over into Georgia. And it ended in I think another crash. So that's incredibly sad that little girl lost her life over the improper actions of adults. Very sad. I was just trying to think real quick if there were any other pressing updates from that area. I see a lot of free swimming lessons in the South Georgia area right now, which is interesting to me because water related deaths that seems to be the response for it is free swimming lessons. I hope that that's just one part of the plan. It's a good thing to do, to offer. I hope that's not the only part of the plan. All right, so let's share one more thing here tonight. As I said before, it is National Missing Children's Day. And we're pretty partial to the case of missing Paula and Brandon Wade. And we've gone over it here a little bit, not completely in depth. The FBI has recently, as of last year, gotten involved in this case. And they now are one more agency that people can go through in order to report information about Paula and Brandon Wade. There are a lot of avenues to report information about Paula and Brandon Wade. And a lot of people that have heard us talk about their case know that. There's the GBI, there's the NCMEC, there's the FBI. Lots of good good agencies to go to. And that on the screen right now, if you're watching on video, is Brandon Lee Wade. Him and his mother, Paula Wade, disappeared from Valdosta in 2002. Paula was last seen in the public leaving work, and there's no clear details about her whereabouts and what happened after that. However, Paula typically would talk to her parents not typically, religiously would talk to her parents every Sunday. It was a thing that their parents had with all their kids. They just had this prearranged time to talk and catch up. Everybody was living in different areas and there were grandkids involved now. So, of course, the grandparents wanted to stay in touch and know what was going on with everybody and how they were. Um, and they were also married to military. So they come from a military family. And Paula Wade, Brandon Lee Wade's mom, was also a military family. She was married to Lance Wade, who was in the Air Force at the time. And not long before Paula and Brandon disappeared, Lance Wade was transferred out of the Valdosta, Georgia area from the Moody Air Force Base, and he was sent over to the Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. And during the separation, of course, things things are not always easy for military families and trying to, you're always kind of moving around and life is always on the move, so to speak. So things needed to be, details needed to be worked out for Paul and Brandon until they would go and join Lance in South Carolina at the Shaw Air Force Base. So Paula and Brandon were going to go stay with Paula's parents in Florida. And literally right before her move, Paula and Brandon Wade disappeared. The first alarm bell was really probably Sunday night when Paula did not have her very religious 6:30 p.m. Sunday night phone call with her parents, especially considering the move was happening very quickly. And they would be communicating about different details, I'm sure, about the move and logistics and things like that. And um, I believe that Paula's husband was going to also be coming to help with the move. And Sunday night there was no phone call, and then Monday morning Paula did not show up for work. Now Paula was so reliable and so well liked among her coworkers that they noticed immediately, and it just didn't sit right with them. And I mean, I just have to say that's pretty amazing because for that detail to stick out, I mean, typically when you work with people, you just think, "Oh, they're no call, no show," or something happened, they're bailing on us or whatever. But no, they knew that there was a reason, that there was no way that they could conceive that Paula Wade would not be at work and she would be okay. So they left. Two coworkers ended up that day going and checking at the apartments where Paula lived with no sign of Paula. Her vehicle was allegedly seen at the apartment, but Paula was not, and neither was Brandon. And eventually, as that day progressed, they checked again. They gave it a little time, and they still couldn't find Paula. So they reported it after making a phone call to her family and saying, something's not right. And so police were able to come to the apartment. They were not able to figure out anything more than what the coworkers had, really. Nobody knew where Paula was. And over 2 decades later, nobody knows where Paula is. Nobody knows where Brandon is. And this is just one story, just one family in the South Georgia area that is dealing with this. And we'll get into their story more, and we'll cover more information about some of the the details of this case. I think there's a lot more to it than people realize, and we definitely want to bring as much attention as we can for Paula and Brandon Wade. They are a Lowndes County missing persons case handled by the Valdosta Police Department and the FBI. At times, the GBI has also done some work for this case, and now the FBI is as well. So we'll we'll be continuing to report on it, and I hope that everybody shares out Brandon Lee Wade for National Missing Children's Day. It's not too late. We got the whole weekend. We can keep this rolling. So, yeah, and I was very happy to see the National Center for Missing Children, Missing and Exploited Children today sharing their flyer. It was great to see. It's so rare that they get a random share. It's usually an anniversary or something like that when they get the attention. But this time it was just so random and out of the blue. It was great to see. Lots of missing children flyers went out today from the FBI, from the NCMEC. So go share any of them. Like go share them all, but make sure you share Brandon too. So that's yeah, and just keep in mind that there are a lot of very scary, disturbing cases of missing children throughout the Georgia area, all across the state. Share their faces, look them up. Stay in tune with what's happening in the area. It speaks to other crime. Sometimes there are bigger issues at play. When a person goes missing, it usually brings that out because typically an investigation helps sort out the details of things that have been kept secret. And we see that happen with so many cases. Anyhow, I think that's really the bulk of what we have tonight. We really appreciate everybody who has been tuning into the content that we have had out here about the arrest of Rodger Goddard, because it is important. It's important to us, and we hope that it's important to people in the community. It seems it is. It really does. And we're going to keep going. There's something going on in this case, and we want to make sure that we stay on top of this. So we appreciate everybody's feedback, even Lil Travie. We're really happy that you stopped by too, because it just helps paint a better picture for the whole thing. And like I said, we'll keep reporting on it and bringing you the updates about what's going on. We'll keep talking about Paula and Brandon Wade and the other cases we have. Don't forget to go, if you're in the Lowndes County area, from that area, please go and make sure that you check out the fugitives, especially the fugitives that are related to child crimes, because it's really important to know those faces. We're finding that most of the time these people are not leaving the area. They're staying, in a neighboring county or two neighboring counties over. And we understand that a lot of people in that area travel to different counties for sporting events, to see other family. It's very common for, that area to be having the residents travel out of county for various things on a regular basis. So again, check that out. Always make sure, check out our videos that we do about fugitives when we put them out, to make sure that everybody is kind of aware of what's going on here. And actually, let's do one more thing before we go. I just want to put this out here because it's another thing that I don't know if a lot of people in Georgia know about. Hang on just a second here. I want to pull something up in case people in the Lowndes County area in South Georgia are not aware of this. So this is from the Georgia Office of the Attorney General, and they are trying to hunt down whoever has a tattoo like this. It says Florida boy. It's got an alligator in the background. They believe that it's possible a tattoo artist from Georgia or Florida did this tattoo. This is a sketch. This is not an actual image of a person. It is a sketch that was made based off of footage that was seen by law enforcement, i.e., this person has allegedly been seen in footage that has to do with the assault of children, likely. So we really need to know who this tattoo belongs to. And they're all allegations for now, but we need to know who this belongs to. If you do know, you can call Crime Stoppers Atlanta at 404-577-8477. You can also and make sure that you have the incident number when you call them, which is 118-5100. Since this is a much less talked about issue, it's good to let them know what you're calling about. I've checked in on this case regularly for quite some time. No one has been implicated. No one has come forward. No person of interest um, has been named or anything like that in connection with this tattoo. But whoever it is either knows about crimes against children or is participating in crimes against children. So let's find them. All right, everybody have a great night.